Hey, good evening and welcome to our middle school online learning orientation. We're so glad that you have joined us for tonight's meeting, and we're going to share some information related to our online students and some of the expectations and requirements related to our middle school online program. And so hopefully we'll, if we built the presentation well enough, that we will answer the majority of your questions, but if not, we ask that you submit a question in the Q&A session or in the chat session of this Zoom meeting. And we have many people from around the school district that are monitoring those questions. We're going to capture those questions. We're going to put those into an FAQ that we will share with all our middle school online parents later this evening or first thing tomorrow morning. And so again, we appreciate you joining us for tonight's meeting. We're going to go over some of the expectations and details related to the meeting. We also have our middle school principals joining us today. So we have Summers Middle School and Bailey Middle School principals with us, and they're going to be monitoring the chat questions as well. So again, thank you for being here. As most of you know, I'm Kevin Worthy. I'm the superintendent. I'm going to pass it over to our assistant superintendent in charge of curriculum instruction, and she's going to go over tonight's presentation. Again, thank you for joining us.
Good evening and welcome. We're so glad that you've joined us this evening, and hopefully we won't take too much of your time. As Mr. Worthy said, my name is Julia Robinson, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. I'm so glad to be joining you this evening to share a little bit about what we've been doing this spring and summer, to prepare for online learning. I do want to remind you again, Mr. Worthy, let's see, it's not going forward here. Let's see, we did too well the first time. Okay, there we go. There we go. Thank you, sir. I was going to share a few objectives with you for tonight. So our goal in this meeting tonight is to provide you information about a typical day in online learning for a middle schooler. How student attendance will be calculated, how students will be graded, and what supplies and materials might be needed for online learning. As you know, Mr. Worthy, our superintendent, is here with us, as well as almost everyone else in administration. Our middle school principals are here. Our assistant superintendent, Kenny K. Hudson, for special and federal programs is here. Adi Bryant with our public relations is here. Our technology folks, we have lots of people here moderating the chat to capture your questions. And as Mr. Worthy said, we'll place all of those in a spreadsheet, and then we'll work really hard tomorrow and the next day to answer all of those questions and post that FAQ to ensure that we answer everything that you need to know about online learning and getting started for the 2021 school year. So thank you again for being here. So let's start with kind of where we are, that current status. And one is that we have about 38 to 40% of our students who have chosen online learning. So we, as you know, students have been signing up and going back and forth, whether they're going online or face-to-face, for about the last 3 weeks. And currently we have 648 students from our middle school campuses, from our 2 middle school campuses, who have chosen online learning. So that's a fairly large number, and so we're looking forward to serving those students this fall. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how we're going to service our students in online learning. And you may or may not know that the Texas Education Agency provided a couple of options to campuses or to districts about how to serve students in remote learning or in learning this year. So one option was obviously face-to-face instruction, and we are providing that at both of our middle schools Monday through Friday if students or parents and families chose face-to-face learning. That is going on. In terms of remote learning, there were really 2 choices. One was called synchronous learning, and it's just simply, if you take the A off the word that you see on the screen in front of you, the asynchronous learning plan. Synchronous learning is when students and teachers are in real time together. So a teacher is teaching a lesson through Google Meet or Zoom like we're doing here, and the students are logged in and they're participating in real time. The teacher's reading something, talking about something, asking questions, the students are able to answer, we're going back and forth. That was an option to serve students, and we are going to do some of that, but that was an option as the entire plan. We did not choose that. We actually chose the asynchronous learning plan because it provides greater flexibility to our parents and our district in this plan. An asynchronous plan is a plan that allows both synchronous, face-to-face, live, real-time interaction between teacher and student, and independent work or work away from the teacher. So if a teacher has recorded a lesson or the teacher has provided a video, a student could watch that video or watch that lesson or a YouTube video or something that might be related to what they're supposed to learn, and then complete the assignment without the benefit of the teacher. So it actually helps students who might be away from their home during the day. At middle school, it's not as big an issue as it is in elementary, but if they are staying with another family during the day while you have to work, or they're staying with grandparents and they don't have access to their device, there were students who needed, or maybe there are multiple children in the family and everyone can't log on at the same time because the internet just won't support it. So there's multiple reasons why students might need to access the learning after it happened in live real time. We are required to provide daily engagement measures. That is different than what we did in Digital Dogs in the spring. So daily engagement measures, there will be an assignment for Monday, for Tuesday, for Wednesday, for Thursday, and for Friday in every course that a student takes, just as if they were at school learning with their teacher. That is required by the Texas Education Agency to show that we are helping students progress in the curriculum in every subject area. We also have to provide high quality instruction, and we've been working on that all summer long, learning to use the tools in Google Meets and in all of the G Suite applications to really provide interesting opportunities for our students to participate. And as I said, it counts asynchronous instructional methods and synchronous instructional methods. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. It allows kids to participate both ways. So let's talk about that piece about attendance. And in school, as you all well know as parents, every day counts. Attendance really does matter. And we want to talk about how that is going to apply to students at the middle school. So how is remote asynchronous attendance measured? The very first thing I need you to know is that measurement frequency is daily. So as I said before, students have to engage in all of their classes on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That's required by the Texas Education Agency for us to have attendance for students. So there's actually 3 ways inside of that asynchronous learning model that students can be counted for attendance. So number 1 is daily progress in the learning management system. In our case, that's Google Classroom. So if a teacher has made an assignment and there's a video there and the assignment there for a student to do in math or science or social studies or whatever the case might be, if the student completes or does that work inside the learning management system, that's going to count, check, they had attendance for today. The second way is daily progress via teacher-student interactions. So if I, as a teacher, am providing a Google Meet and I'm doing the social studies lesson and your student remotes in and participates with that lesson, asks questions, goes back and forth, participates in the breakouts, then I'm going to get to count attendance for that student by participating in those teacher-student interactions. Also, if I didn't hear from a student during the day and I'm the social studies teacher and I called at the end of the day and said, I missed you today in class, did you look at the Google Classroom for social studies for history in the 6th grade? Do you understand what you're supposed to do? Do you have any questions? And help the student over the phone. That can also count as daily progress via teacher-student interactions. Just so I don't forget to say it later, we are working again to have Google Voice for our online teachers so they can have the ability to text you or your student and ask a question and the student can text back to ensure that they're getting the support they need to be successful, just in case I forget to say that later. And then finally, completing or turning in assignments from the student to the teacher. That could be via email. Generally, it's going to be online through Google Classroom, or sometimes there might be a situation or case that you might need to mail something in. I don't know what that would be, but that would be allowable under this system. So this is a picture of exactly what I just described in words. And so the question was, if you start up in the upper left-hand corner where it says start here in that blue box, The question says, was the student on campus for in-person instruction today? And I'm thinking that everyone that's listening to this presentation is not going to say no to that question because you have chosen online learning for your students. So you would move immediately over to that long gold bar. And so the question asked, did students participate in asynchronous learning in one of the three measures? And notice that little asterisk that says students can be engaged up till 11:59 p.m. I'm going to go back to that flexibility. If your student was at a doctor's appointment or was staying with a grandparent or something happened during the day that they weren't at home and able to log in with their teacher, if they log in after hours and they complete the assignment that day before midnight, that student can count that as attendance. So again, there are those three ways. Did the student submit a completed assignment? If so, yes, then they're present. Did the student show any progress in Google Classroom? If the answer is yes, then they're marked present. And did the student conference with the teacher via Google Meet or Zoom or phone? If they did that, then yes. If they don't do any of those things, if they're MIA, the student is MIA, we don't have any interaction with them at all, they will be marked absent. So let's talk about why does that matter. In the state of Texas, there is a compulsory attendance law that districts are required to enforce. It's what we refer to in school as the 90% rule. And what it says is that students in K-12 must attend class 90% of the time the class is offered to receive credit or a final grade. So in K through 8, that has to do with the final grade. It comes out to about 17 or 18 days of absence. So in the first semester, about 9 days, and in the second semester, about 9 days. If a student misses more than 9 days in the fall semester or the spring semester, then the campus has to convene what's called an attendance committee. And we're required to provide additional support to the student and additional assignments in order to give them credit for that class and a final grade. We typically do that through summer school. Students who have missed attendance days, they are made up in summer school time to allow those students to gain that grade to be able to be promoted to the next grade. So that 90% rule, if you're taking a high school course, and there are some courses in middle school, Algebra 1, Spanish, BIM, speech, there are some high school credits in middle school in the 8th grade. If you don't attend 90% of the days that the class is offered, then you do not get credit for that course. You're denied credit and you have to take the class over again. So it's really, really important that students understand that this is very different from in the spring when we were just trying to maintain learning in a brand new situation that we weren't familiar with. We have reworked that. We have additional guidance from the state and from the Texas Education Agency. So students must be in attendance 90% of the time. Very, very important. So how can I help my student be successful with online learning? I certainly won't click on this link and take your time tonight, but if you wanted to jot this down, and someone that's watching from our office will put it in the chat, but if you go to bit.ly/ideal study, this is an article about middle school and high school students and 10 tips for really creating an ideal study space for students that are that age. There are lots of challenges to keeping middle schoolers and high schoolers engaged when they're at home and in all of what's happening in learning. And so this is a really great article that you might want to check out when you have just a moment. Reads very quickly. A couple of really important ideas from that article and the things that we learned from in the spring is number one, set up a space at home that is conducive for learning. So I just took a little snapshot over on the left. I wish my house was that clean, but it's nothing fancy. It's just a desk and some pencils and their computer and some good lighting. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but notice that it's out in a common area of the house, in a den or a kitchen or something like that. When students remain in their bedroom all day long, sometimes it's hard for them to mentally say, I'm at school today. So setting up a space that when they go to that space, it's time for learning, really sort of helps with that mental picture of school is in session and I'm doing school right now. It's just kind of a subtle reminder that that's what they're doing. So if you have an opportunity or place that you can set up that's conducive, that really has helped students be successful in online learning environments. Secondly, Encourage your student to dress appropriately for class. I'm going to go back to that mental mindset again. If you get up in the morning, we understand that you might be running to class the first period because you overslept just a little bit, and we understand that. But having on clothes that are not dress clothes, but school appropriate clothes, a t-shirt and shorts, or those kinds of things, are going to again send that message that school is in session. When students stay in their pajamas all day long, sometimes it's hard again to mentally prepare themselves for school all day long. Plus, if they're on a Google Meet or a breakout with the members of their class, we want to be really careful that everything is appropriate there. So we're really encouraging students to dress appropriately for class. And thirdly, to utilize the camera on your Chromebook to engage with your classmates and your teacher. I should put that there as well. We understand that they might be running late and they're eating their cereal or their Pop-Tart when first period is getting started and they have their camera off in order to do that. There's not anything wrong with that. But when they're done, if they can turn that camera on so that they can engage and see their classmates who are in the online learning environment or in the breakout room so they can collaborate together, we have found that students are more engaged in class if they have their camera on. We realize it won't be all the time. Maybe they were running late and they're changing clothes as first period is coming on or second period is coming on. We understand there'll be times that their cameras are off, but that is really something to sort of encourage and engage with your student about. So let's talk just briefly about a schedule. This is a sample middle school schedule. Every single child's would look different, but we're just going to assume that we're looking at a 6th grade student, and you can see the periods on the left-hand side, periods 1 through 8. And there's some course codes. There's lots of things on that little paper that you get that don't mean anything. But we're going to look at the description column. They don't mean anything to you. They're our coding for PEEMS. But the description, so this student has history, 6th grade, history, first period. Then they have band, and they're in the trumpet group. They have bulldog block. I'll come back to that. Science, math, English, reading, and PE. As an example, this is what that student's doing. So you'll see the teacher listed there and the room number and the days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So obviously your student wouldn't be in a room. If they came back to school, they might be in that room during that period, but that might have to be adapted depending on how many students are coming back from online learning to face-to-face. But generally, that's what that means. So as an example, this student would log in first period and go to history somewhere around 8 o'clock. We'll send you the list of times. I should have put those on here. 6th grade history first period, and Miss Harris would be teaching that class. She might not take the whole 48 minutes to teach history. She might only take 30 minutes of the 48 to teach history. And then she might say to her students, it's time for you to get to work on your assignment. And they would use the remainder of that class period to do their assignment. Or she may have scheduled breakout rooms where students are going to talk about something in history, and then they're going to work on individual components of that assignment in those breakout rooms. So each teacher will handle that differently. As I mentioned, band and trumpet, that will likely be a recorded lesson. I'll talk more about the fine arts in just a moment, but that would be a recorded lesson from the trumpet teacher, and then your student would be able to practice on that. That would not always be a synchronous class. And then Bulldog Block is where we do some RTI and clubs. Those are not going to start until after Labor Day, so your student will get more information and have the opportunity to sign up, or a teacher might need your student to sign up for an RTI or tutorial help during that time period. So more information to come as we get into learning. And then science, math, English, reading, and PE would all follow the same thing. Again, PE is likely to be a synchronous, an asynchronous video or something the PE teacher wants the student to do, and then maybe they have a journal about something they're having to keep up with in PE. But again, remember, daily engagement for each one of those courses. So who's going to be teaching my child? So students will be taught by their normally scheduled teacher. So Miss Harris is a history teacher. Miss Satterwhite is an ELAR teacher. Miss Wilkins is a science teacher. So each teacher that is teaching the course is certified to do that, and that is their normal schedule. those teachers have a class period for online learners so that they don't have the distraction of kids in the class and kids in online learning, because middle schoolers generally do better if they're in one or the other. We've done a little bit of research about which grade levels we should use what methods with. So they'll be with their normally scheduled teacher. And during this week, you are going to receive an email. Parents will receive an email with the Google Classroom codes. So students should get 7 classroom codes, one for each of those class periods that I just mentioned there. They won't get anything for Bulldog Block, and so that's why there are 7. So they're going to get an email, parents you will, with their Google Classroom code. If you don't get those Google Classroom codes by the end of the week, Melissa Harvey is the associate principal at Summers Middle School, and that is her email address right there, melissa.harvey@rcisd.org. And Kathleen Petroff is the associate principal at Bailey Middle School. You can email those 2 teachers, and they are maintaining a spreadsheet with all of the Google Classroom codes for each class and would be able to help you. The reason that's important is there is a Google Classroom code for every period for every teacher. So if you might imagine that matrix, it has hundreds of Google Classroom codes for all of the different classes that are going on. So let's talk briefly about performance-based classes. In this case, band, choir, and theater. Online students do have the opportunity to participate in live group performances, concerts, competitions, etc., if they attend before and or after school rehearsals scheduled by their directors. So if they want to participate in a performance, at some point they're going to need the opportunity to be with the rest of the band or the choir or the theater for practice. So if they come to those before and after school, they can certainly participate in those live group performances. You will get this email information from Doug Fullwood, our Director of Fine Arts, later this week, but I just wanted to cover some main points here. Students who are online for band, choir, and theater can still be enrolled in those courses even without participating in the live group performance. So if there is concern for your family about exposure to COVID-19 or some other reason that a student wouldn't be able to come to a live performance, that does not preclude them from being involved in band and choir and theater. They can still do that. They would just have online performances organized by their teachers of band, choir, and theater instead of those live group performances. So this slide has a lot of text on it. I don't normally do that, but this is directions from Mr. Fullwood, our Fine Arts Director. So I just wanted to remind you that they can take all performance-based classes. They have to come face-to-face if they want to be in a live performance, and that the directors have the decision on participating in a live performing group. That's always been true. All of you who have been involved in band and choir and theater understand that. And then if you're completely online, they can take those completely online. They don't have to be come to the live performances, but they do have similar course content as the face-to-face learners, those video lessons, because they have Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, what we call the TEKS. In music and theater, there are TEKS that those students do need to accomplish for those courses. And they will be graded specifically on their knowledge in that course and their proficiency. In terms of athletics, we did want you to know that during class time, the face-to-face students during athletic period will be doing strength and conditioning. So you will see that mirrored in the Google Classroom for PE or athletics. There will be strength and conditioning, things that the coaches and teachers will be asking those students to do. All of the practice for football, volleyball, cross country, cheerleading, all of those practices are before and after school. So students will be notified, depending on the course, if football is practicing after school and cheerleading is before school, they'll be notified, and they will have to come to those practices if they want to participate in the live performances. But during class, it's strength and conditioning for everyone. So let's talk about assessments for just a minute. There are several opportunities for assessment. After Labor Day week, on September the 8th, we will begin with doing what we call reading and math screeners. We use MAP, which is Measures of Academic Progress, and it's an assessment that allows us to gauge, does a student have any gaps in their learning in reading and math, or do they need enrichment in reading and math? It actually assesses what a student knows and doesn't know so that our teachers can teach the next thing that a student needs to know to grow and learn. I would really encourage you to encourage your student to try their best on that screener, but I'd also encourage you not to help them on those screeners. They don't count for a grade. They don't have anything to do with grading. It's something that we use to provide intervention, tutorials, enrichment, support, and knowing exactly what a kid needs is really, really important in this area. So we will be doing those starting the week after Labor Day. Unit test, we have always given unit tests and we will continue to do that. They will be done on our Chromebooks and we use a program called GoGuardian. I'll talk about that again in a minute. It's a filtering system, but it's also a security system. So our teachers will be able to see if students, how much time they're spending on the test. If they go out to other websites to search for answers, our teachers will be able to see that. It's a system that allows us to create some sort of security for our unit tests. So we typically give those at the end of a unit of instruction. So that's at different times. Your teacher will let you know, but in ELAR, it's generally at the end of the 9 weeks. But in math, they happen a little more frequently. In a 9-week period, there might be 2 or 3 unit tests. And in ELAR, only maybe 1 or 2. Those tests do count in the gradebook under the tested area, under what we call the summative grades. And anything that's in a unit test area or summative grade is available for a redo, just as it was before. They would just need to interact with their teacher about how to get that done. And then lastly, at this point, the Texas Education Agency is still saying that we are going to have STAR, grades 6, 7, and 8. And if they take Algebra 1, obviously we would be offering Algebra 1. That isn't until May. 8th grade is at the end of April. They test a little earlier because of the SSI, Student Success Initiative requirements for promotion and retention. Those things have been waived, but the test has not been waived. So at this point, we believe that we will be giving that test in April and May. And so much more information to come about that, but I just did want you to know that currently that is our understanding. So a couple of helpful reminders. One is having your student connect as much as possible with their teacher promotes academic success. I will tell you that the students that log on and hear the history lecture or the information that the teacher's sharing or the math lesson that the teacher's sharing and is able to ask questions back and forth is going to be far more successful than a student who's watching a video of something that they weren't present and part of. I know that you'll have needs to do that, and that's why we want to provide that option. But every opportunity that you can promote your student connecting with their teacher during their class period, their grades, you will see much improvement in their grades and in their learning. We've just learned that over all of time and with Digital Dogs and looking at the research about what makes kids successful online. Number 2, instruction is provided asynchronously as much as possible in the event that you cannot attend live. So if you miss something, don't stress, don't overly stress. Just try to make a plan for that not to happen all the time, just like you wouldn't pull them out of school all the time. Make appointments when you can, as much after school or early morning as you can, so that kids can participate with their teacher and be as successful as possible. And then finally, stay in contact with your child's teacher. As I said, they're going to have Google Voice, and they will be doing a virtual Meet the Teacher for you in this next week. Ask for needed supports. If you know that your student is struggling and not understanding the lesson, please text your teacher or email your teacher and let them know. Our teachers want to help your students be successful, but that sometimes they don't know when they're not with them every day and not seeing exactly what the student is writing on their paper, that they're struggling as quickly as you might know that. So please ask for those supports if they're needed. And then grading. It is a TEA requirement, the Texas Education Agency requirement, that online teachers follow the same grading policy as the in-person teachers. We have been working diligently throughout this spring to sort of plan what we call a lesson guide. What's the order and sequence that the lessons will be provided in social studies and ELA or math and science and BIM, all of the courses that we teach. And we've gone so far as to help the teachers designate which assignments are going to be graded, because we really want to give the students who are at home the exact same opportunity that kids who are at school. So there is tremendous correlation and alignment in the teachers with what they're giving in-person students to do and what they're giving online students to do. So just be aware of that. And you will continue to receive progress notes. As you know, this first 9 weeks is going to be just a little shorter. It's actually 7 weeks, not 9 weeks. So I guess I should call it a grading period. So there will be a progress note. Grades will stop on September the 11th. That's an important date. You're going to see it again in just a minute. And they will receive their progress notes on September 18th. And then they'll finish out the grading period through October 2nd and get their report cards on the 9th, I believe. I may not have that number memorized in my head, but so they will receive progress notes and their traditional report cards as we have always done in the past. Let me just double check my thinking. Yes, on the 9th is the end of the 9 weeks, and they will receive their report cards the week of the 16th. So sorry about that. And then I would encourage you as a parent to stay active in family access to ensure that you're up to date about grades. Don't take what you see in Google Classroom. We hope that we have grading turned off in Google Classroom so that you won't get any conflicting messages. Some of our teachers didn't realize in the spring that things they did in Google Classroom were showing grades to parents, but teachers are also giving tests. They're also giving assignments that have to be emailed in, and those things aren't recorded in Google Classroom. So family access is where all official grading takes place. So make sure you're checking family access to make sure that you're up to date about grades. So let's talk about what supplies they're going to need. Students will, if you requested during enrollment that you needed a Chromebook, and if you're at middle school, many of those have already been handed out. You should either have that Chromebook or have an appointment to get that Chromebook this coming week. If you need help with that, I'll show you in a minute who you can email. But that Chromebook has Go Guardian on it. I mentioned that earlier. It records other websites that students go out to. It's kind of a test security piece that we use, but it also is a filtering system that helps us comply with the SIPA rules, the Childhood Internet Protection Act. And it makes sure that we are monitoring where students go to. So if they visit an inappropriate site, or if they write something inappropriate in an email using that Chromebook, it's going to flag their campus and their technology people, and the principals will be contacted, and then they will contact you to let you know that your student has either visited an inappropriate site or written something inappropriate in an email. An effort to really help make sure that our students aren't anywhere they aren't supposed to be. It isn't perfect. If any of you know, and since you have children, it's not a perfect thing, but it really does help us monitor where students are. So I'd go ahead and tell my students, if I were you, that Go Guardian is on there and that is being monitored. It just kind of helps everybody stay on the up and up. Textbooks, almost all of our textbooks are digital, and they're available through a system that we call Clever. You'll see that on this third line. Clever is a single sign-on method that we use so that when students go to Clever, they can access all the different ebooks and all the different textbooks and software that they need without having to sign in to each individual one. Your child's teacher will walk them through exactly how to get to their textbook or their software in their digital overview the first couple of days of school. So don't worry if you don't know how to do that right now. Your teacher has plans to walk your student through that. And then finally, any educational software that your student might be using, MAP, PathBlazer, eBooks, any of those things are all available in Clever as well. And we even hope to have a system where if you wanted to check out a book from one of our libraries, you would have the ability to basically do that online. The librarian could prepare it and you could go by and pick it up. Any resource that we have in the school district, we want to provide to you, our online learning families, to make sure you're as successful as possible. So any resource we have is ours to share with you. So parent provided supplies, this is kind of a short list. I want to tell you that if you decide that you want to come back to face-to-face learning, you would need to access the parent supply list for face-to-face learning because there would be several other things that you need. But this is from basically the core content teachers. Composition notebooks, I would recommend that they have one for each class. It will make it so much easier in organization, and if they determine that they want to come back to school, if all of their history materials are in one notebook and their science materials are in another and their math in another. So it's just an organizational tool that most middle school students need, and I need it too. They'll need some notebook paper for writing and essays, those kinds of things. Pencils, the colored pencils, the science and social studies teachers use that for the science periodic table, for maps that they're using. So a set of colored pencils is very helpful, and highlighters, obviously, for highlighting text and things that they're going to need to do on various assignments to turn in. And I've listed headphones there. Any set of headphones will do, so you can get them at the dollar store, all the way up to really, really expensive ones. I will add this one additional piece of information. Many of our teachers found in the spring that if students had headphones with a microphone, that it cut out some of that ambient noise and made it easier for students to hear and students to respond. It was not quite as groggy as just responding with a regular set of headphones. So if you have the resources and are able to do that, that could be helpful for your student, but it's most definitely not, it's not required, but it could be helpful for your student. So let's talk about Google Classroom and what it might look like. The Google Classroom icon is there on the left. And so when you see that, you'll know that your student is inside Google Classroom. And there's actually 3 sections of Google Classroom that your student will be working with. The first one is a section called Information. And you'll see on this slide that under the Information tab, there is a little line for campus-wide announcements. So if Mr. Pence and Ms. Harvey or Mrs. Morales and Ms. Petroff do weekly announcements for the school, those would be posted in that link so that your student would have an opportunity to see what's going on that they might be interested in participating in. That second link says Google Meet Calendar. So each teacher will have the link for their Google Classroom in that section so that it's easy for you to find and easy for the student to find. And it will remind them at the time that that Google Classroom, Google Meet is going to happen. And then thirdly, in that third section, there will be a weekly overview or a newsletter from the teacher about what you can expect that week. It will take varying forms depending on the classroom or the teacher, PE, history, art, music, but that would be an easy place for you to look to see what is expected this week as a parent. So that's under the information section. The second section is called additional resources, and anything that a student might need multiple times would be in that section. So if there is a sight word list or a vocabulary list that students are going to use over and over again, or if maybe there is a United States history, a United States map or a world map that they're going to use in social studies over and over and over again, or an anchor chart about how to find the main idea, or to cite text evidence, or whatever the resource might be, that's going to be listed in additional resources so that your student does not have to look all over Google Classroom to find it. It will always be in that additional resource section. And then finally, the third section will be where students will find their assignments for the week. So they'll be labeled week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And as you can see, there will be lessons underneath there. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I'll remind you again, I've probably said it too many times, the student has to engage each day of the week by completing the assignments in Google Classroom or engaging with the teacher in Google Meets to be counted present. So they will be there every single day. And then when the 9 weeks end and report cards have been completed, the first 9 weeks will be archived to clean that out so that you don't have so much to look at, and we'll start with the second 9 weeks. And then finally, underneath that day, as an example, we refer to it as a hyperdoc. And what that is a set of Google Classroom slides. So on the first slide might be the video of the teacher teaching the lesson for history or math or science. And then there might be a second slide that has an anchor chart or some information kids are going to need to complete the assignment. And the third slide might actually have the assignment in it. Now, I need to tell you something that you probably learned during Digital Dogs, but I want to reiterate it here. Over on the right, there is a section where the student can put, it says turn in. Your student can actually turn in their assignment without putting a single thing on it. Google is smart, but it is not smarter than a middle schooler. If they open their assignment for English and just hit the turn in button, you're going to see as a parent that that assignment is submitted, but they might not have done the assignment. Kids got really good at that in the spring. So we have advised our middle school teachers to create a blanket email that says your student submitted their assignment today and there was no work there. And they're going to send it to the student or to you to let you know that the student hit submit, so that maybe mom and dad looking over the shoulder sees that the assignment was turned in, but the student really didn't do anything. So that is really a system that you'll have to work out with your student. And we'll have, as I've told the teachers, the word grace is our word for the 2021 school year. We're going to have a lot of grace at the beginning and help people really understand what they need to do. But students do need to know they actually have to complete the assignment before they turn it in. Just want you to know that. And then technology support. Starting on Monday, August 24th, we will have an online technology support available to our parents. You would go to our webpage, www.rcisd.org, and on the banner at the top, you would select for parents. You see it there in red. And then the very last box says online learning support. And that's going to take you to a page that looks like this little yellow box or this box over here on the right that says, how can we help you? And on that page, you're going to see that Google Classroom icon. You're going to see the Google Meet icon. You're going to see the Google Slides icon, Google Docs, all of the different G Suite tools. Our Chrome Squad, our innovative learning specialists, our innovative design specialists have been working, instructional design coaches have been working this summer, and they have created click sheets and videos on the major tools that we use in Google. So if you're having trouble with Google Meets, you can't get it to launch or you can't get the sound to work, there's likely going to be a video and a click sheet behind this little icon for Google Meets that you can look at and see if that provides you the information that you need. If not, there's going to be another button that says, I need additional help. And when you click on that, you're going to get this form that says Connected for Learning Support. It'll ask you for your name and your email address, and then it will ask you what's the problem that you're experiencing or the difficulty that you're experiencing. And if you will tell them what that is, our Chrome Squad students at the high school, all of our Chrome crew that works out there, Chrome Squad, and those instructional design coaches and innovative learning specialists, they are monitoring this page every day. Our goal is to answer your question the same day that you ask it. Don't know if on the first few days that'll be possible, but we're going to do our very best. So there is a way for you to get online technology support, how to connect your MiFi to the Chromebook or whatever the question might be. So we've been asked multiple times, what do I do if I want to switch back to in-person learning? That is absolutely something that you can do. We want to serve our students in the best way that meets the needs of families. So we are providing a 3-week grace period at the beginning of the year. So we start school on August 24th. So on August 25th, a tile is going to appear in Family Access called Online Learning Styles. And if you are a virtual learner, an online learner, and you want to switch to in-person learning, you will be able to click on that tile and make that request. That tile is going to be open from the 25th to the 10th, because remember I told you on the 11th, that's when the first progress period ends. And kids going back and forth all grading period long makes it very difficult for them to get what they need and for teachers to really know who's in what class. So for 3 weeks, they can do that. It does require a 24-hour notice to the campus. So if you fill it out on August 24th that, okay, this online learning is not for me, then you would be able to go to school on the 26th, a 24-hour period, because they're going to have to create a schedule for your student for face-to-face, because they would come out of the online learning section and into an in-person learning section. So there's several different things that have to happen to get your student in all of the right classes. We are limiting that to 1 switch within the 9-week grace period. I'm sure that you can understand that. If you come from online learning to face-to-face and then 2 days later want to go back to online learning, it's just a constantly moving target that our teachers are trying to hit, and we're really wanting to settle those classes just as quickly as we can to get into our regular routine. And then finally, at the end of each 9 weeks, so on October 9th is the end of the first 9 weeks. 1 week prior to that, October the 2nd, that online learning style tile will appear in Family Access again. Actually, it's there the whole 9 weeks. I beg your pardon, it's there the whole 9 weeks. But it's going to close 1 week prior. So on October 2nd, it will close for the first 9 weeks. If you have not made a selection to move into face-to-face learning or face-to-face learners into online learning, then you're going to have to go the second 9 weeks in whatever format you have chosen. So that would take you to the semester mark, and then you would have another opportunity to make a change at the semester, and then a third opportunity happens in March, right? The very first week of March, so you would make that decision the last week of February. So students can change at the grading periods, but they can't go back and forth in between during the grading period. It's just too complicated to get the students what they need and have the teachers have any semblance of routine and procedure in their classroom. And then my final thing is about meals. We do have a meals to go process. We did this during Digital Dogs, and we will continue in the fall. So we are going to offer that meal program for online students. You can pre-order your meals by Thursday at midnight, and then pick up those meals on Monday morning or a Tuesday if school's not in session. The very first thing that's going to happen is Labor Day. And so that's a Monday that we're going to be closed on September 7th. So that week you would pick up your meals on Tuesday morning for the rest of the week. So just wanted you to know that process is there. It is for RCISD enrolled students only. Sometimes there's a little confusion about that. So they do have to be enrolled in RCISD to participate. And you can do that at www.rcisd.org/food. And there is a little box, online learner meal order form. That is actually active right now. That form is actually there that you can go to. The online support won't launch until Monday morning when students start back to school. So I just wanted to take a moment to ask you if you had any questions I didn't address, to place them in the chat. I'm sure I've forgotten something, but we will take those questions tonight and tomorrow and answer them just as quickly as we can and get that FAQ back out on the website and through social media to have answers to the questions you might have asked. So Mr. Worthy's going to talk to you for just a minute, so keep typing those questions in the chat. But I just wanted to thank you so much for the opportunity to serve your child and to serve you. We love our students and we have missed them so much, and we look forward to having them back either online and virtual Google Meets or in class face-to-face. And we hope that you have a great 2021 school year. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. We appreciate your efforts, and we appreciate the entire team of the curriculum department and everything that you guys are doing. So again, I'm just going to stay online for a couple of more minutes just to allow you to type any questions in. We hope that we answered the majority of your questions, but we do see some in the chat feature. So we will be creating an FAQ that we'll get out just as soon as possible. We also recorded this meeting, and so we'll place this recorded version of the meeting, elementary and middle school, and then later the high school meeting on our website, along with each one of the PowerPoints. And so if you didn't get a chance to join in on the meeting and you have friends that didn't get a chance, direct them to our website. As soon as A.D. Bryant can download the audio, she will get this on our website as soon as possible. So again, we appreciate all our parents. We appreciate our middle school. We can't wait to open up our Summers Middle School along with our Bailey Middle School, and those that are online, we can't wait for you to meet your teachers as well. So
someone asked about soccer. It's the same as football, and I didn't think to say that. I'm sorry.
Soccer is the same as football, cross country, volleyball, every sport that falls during the season where online students are still online, and they will still have the opportunity to participate before or after school. All righty.
Will strength and conditioning require any type of equipment? I don't think anything.
Okay. Well, guys, thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful Monday evening. Get some rest this week, and we look forward to serving your student on August 24th. Have a wonderful night.